Okay. So hopefully on the tables, if the children want it, there's some colouring, there's some quizzes, things that they can do to occupy themselves just for a few minutes. It looks like I have a helper, which is fine. Okay, so we've been thinking about this passage from Hebrews 12 in our series on Hebrews. Friday was All Saints' Day, the day in the church's year that we give thanks to God for the lives of those who've gone before us and whose lives have been an example of how to run with our eyes fixed on Jesus. We too remember that we are all saints, all running the race, and so too are an example to others. In today's passage, we are urged to fix our eyes on Jesus, the one who endured the cross, scorned shame, and sat down on the right hand of God. He is the ultimate example of how we run the race. To run a race well, we have to understand that it has different parts, a beginning, a middle, and an end. And also that whilst we're aiming for the same goal, our races all look different because we are all different athletes. The beginning. The race begins with a decision to follow Jesus. He is the goal. He is the example. The writer of Hebrews in chapter 3 has already told us to fix our thoughts upon Jesus. And now he is telling us to fix our eyes upon him too. The word the writer uses from the Greek is apharo, apo, meaning away from something near, to direct forwards. And hare, meaning to look away from all else and look steadfastly, intently towards a distant object. We are called to direct our attention without distraction as we choose to look forward to Jesus. Picture the scene before the start of an important sporting event. Athletes spend their time preparing, whether it's swimmers adjusting their goggles, runners sorting out their blocks, throwers checking their equipment. Whatever the race, there is preparation to do. Whilst that athlete also spends that time getting into the zone, picturing how they are going to approach that race, using all their training that has gone before them to focus on the goal that they are aiming for. Whether it be a sporting race or a spiritual race, if we do not know what we are aiming for and fix our eyes upon it, we will never begin the race. As the saying goes, if we aim for nothing, we will hit nothing. And so the race has begun. We're off. And this is where the hard work and all that training and preparation comes into play. As Sarah demonstrated earlier, life gets in the way. Things entangle us, we struggle with what is going on, and yet we are called to run with perseverance. Please don't touch that. Whether or not things go according to plan. The dictionary definition of perseverance I love. It's persistence in doing something despite difficulty or delay in choosing success. It again takes us back to fixing our eyes on Jesus. We are urged, the writer of Hebrews urges us to keep on going, regardless of what life throws at us. In 1983, 150 world-class runners converged on Sydney to run the world's longest and toughest ultramarathon. It's 543.7 miles from Sydney to Melbourne. Don't think anyone here will fancy running it. I might be wrong. On the day of the race, Cliff Young, a 61-year-old potato and sheep farmer from Australia, approached the registration desk. He was wearing his overalls and welly boots. He requested a number and stated his intention to run. Everyone was a little surprised, and as the race started, the crowd sniggered as Cliff was lagging behind all the other runners in his work gear. The sniggers turned to laughter at his running style, a slow, leisurely shuffle. 5 days, 15 hours, and 4 minutes later, Cliff came shuffling across the finish line, winning the ultramarathon. He didn't just win by minutes or hours. His closest competitor was 9 hours and 56 minutes behind him. Everyone knows that there is only one way to win an ultramarathon, apparently, and that is that you run for 16 hours, and then you sleep for 6, and you do the same for 5 or 6 days, however long it takes to reach the goal. But no one had told this to Cliff. Cliff kept going day and night and day, with his leisurely shuffle towards the finish line, and smashed the record by 9 hours, becoming a national hero overnight. Running the race looks different for different people, even when the goal is the same. The race we are running, our spiritual race, requires endurance, requires a plan. It requires us to get back on track when things do not go right. And most of all, it requires us to keep our eyes fixed on Jesus, despite our race plan maybe looking different to others. And then we near the end. Tanzanian marathon runner John Stephen Akwari raced at the Mexico City Olympics in 1968. He finished over an hour behind the other competitors. He was injured and came into the stadium limping and covered in blood. There were only a few people left cheering him on. Afterwards, he was asked, "Why did you keep going?" He replied, "My country did not send me to Mexico City to start a race. They sent me here to finish it." The writer of Hebrews 12 urges us to consider him, Jesus, who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart, that we will carry on to the end of the race, whilst it might seem hard. Chapter 12 of Hebrews is set up from chapter 11, in which the writer describes the amazing stories of so many people who have gone before us in the Old Testament, the examples of their faith. And now, in chapter 12, this imagery is expanded, describing the great cloud of witnesses, all those who surround us. The saints, the people we know, known and unknown, who are examples to us and encourage us day by day at whatever point in the race we are at, however we're running it, to fix our eyes on Jesus.